Today we will look at this rich piece of water from above the surface, and then we will go under the water and see what is actually there. Here is a section of water we are dealing with. The river has a mix of trout and whitefish, and it is early in the season. Air temperatures are reaching 15 degrees Celsius, but overnight lows are well below 5 degrees. Water clarity is high, water levels are good. Vegetation has just started to turn green, but we're well before the spring meltwater blows out the river. Now let's break down this river into its segments. At the bottom of the run, or the most downstream section, is the Tailout, which forms principally the end of the good water and starts the transition to the next section of the river or the next run. In this particular piece of water, the Tailout is very short and abrupt. Now, the Tailout of a run is where the water shallows up and then often starts to speed up. More frequently, the Tailout is longer and more gradual, but in this spot, the change from the deeper and slower water happens very quickly. In this section, the Tailout is maybe 10 feet long. In other areas, it might be as long as 50 feet. The Tailout can be a good spot to find fish, though rarely on a bright day like this and in clear water. The fish are often too exposed, and they often have a very good view of the surroundings to make approaching them rather difficult. There are exceptions, but usually the fish that position themselves here are not as aggressively feeding, but they still may come looking for food. In brief though, never overlook the Tailout section as it can contain the most wary fish, and spooking them can ruin the whole piece of water. Next, let's identify the main seams in this body of water. This spot has 4 seams, shown by the 4 hand-drawn oval shapes. These seams are where the fast water runs against the slower water, where differing current speeds meet, creating a distinct seam. In this beat, the head of the run is split into 2 inflows of current from the riffle above. On the sides of each inflow is a distinct seam, leading to 4 seams in total. The seams are often the richest part of any run, and is often where feeding fish position themselves. It offers cover due to the rippled surface, offers comfort in the way of being easy water to sit in due to the slower current on the sides, yet provides immense oxygen from the white water upstream, and offers calories in the form of a conveyor belt of food coming down through the fast water. It's prime real estate. Usually this area has the greatest chance of producing action for us and where you might expect the most fish to come from. At the most upstream end of this water is the shallow riffle or the cascade that forms the head of the beat. Part of it is often too shallow and swift to hold fish, though it can, and it carries much of the food and oxygen into the main part of the run. Usually any fish sitting near there is feeding intensively and often has little time to make decisions as food coming by does so very quickly. If fish are there, you have to be prepared for very fast hits that may come the instant your fly hits the water. You really have to be focused when fishing here. The head can be less appealing in cold water and cold weather, but more appealing in hot weather. This area also has an eddy, which can be good but can also be poor depending on the conditions. If the eddy is deep enough, it can hold fish as the circular current tends to trap insects in it, and food items are easy targets for the fish there, as the fish can see their surroundings extremely well. However, if the eddy water is slow, too clear and too shallow, it may not offer enough for the fish. I suspect that this is the case here today based on the lighter color of the bottom suggesting it is shallow and the surface foam not moving much, implying it is very slow water. I would absolutely fish it, but I would be having less expectations. Right at the head of this beat, and in between the 2 inflows that make up the seams, there is a slack piece of water. Often slack water is created behind boulders or where there is very deep parts of the water. As the current gets slowed down, it becomes, well, slack. Being that it is deep and often associated with seams, it can be a very rich place for fish to sit. Furthermore, the slowness of the water makes it easy for fish to see any food. In this situation, being close to the head, it is also oxygen rich and can have a lot of food. Any fly presented here will be easily seen and within reach of a hungry trout that is sitting in one of the seams next to it. As such, I would fish this spot very seriously. The last section is the main body, or what is generally called the heart of the run. This is where the fast water starts to slow and the depth is more consistent. The surface currents often start to get more smooth here. Not as smooth as a glide would be, which we don't have an example of in this body of water anyways, but smoother than the riffles upstream. It can often be the biggest part of the beat as well. It usually always holds fish all year round. It is particularly attractive to large schooling fish as well, such as whitefish that may sit in water like this in groups of tens or even hundreds. It can consistently be the most reliable part of the beat for catching fish, second only to maybe the seams, which may be the richest. Often it is the easiest spot to fish as the current is consistent, the depth is consistent, and the speed not too excessive to get a fly deep to. Now let's get underwater and see where the fish are holding today, because that's the interesting part. Let's start the most downstream end first, the tailout. Lots of fish here, but exclusively whitefish, not a single trout as far as I can see. Hugging the bottom as they often do, but they're largely right in line with that one large boulder too. Let's go upstream, more towards the main body of the run now. On the left, which is upstream, you can see part of the head of the run, where the water's moving faster, the fish are bouncing around. On the right and the center of the screen, it is deeper. The fish are moving less, but are gathered in good numbers. Again though, strictly whitefish, but plenty of them. This is the main body of the run. All ages of fish too, which is healthy to see. Whitefish with power markings up to larger fish that are several years much older. No suckers per se, these are all salmonids. Now we're looking back downstream towards the tailout section again, but let's now move further upstream to the very head of the run. We are at the head of the run and still plenty of whitefish, but we now see some rainbow trout. Two of them even make a point to look directly at us. They go back to the well-aerated waters, but you can see that they are still keeping some of their focus on us. Most of these fish are right around the seams we saw in the overhead shot, right by where the water spills in, and on the inside seams. It's not really feasible to see the seams from under the water right now, but I think the fish are indicating where the seams are by their positions. We don't see any fish on the outside seams. But the reasons why we may not see the fish in those seams is because the outer seam that is closest to us, well, it's likely too close to the camera and me, and the fish are wary enough to stay away. And the far seam, well, it's just beyond what we can see with the camera in this water. So I am sure they are there, or would be there, if we could spy on them less obtrusively. But there is clearly a good number of fish up in the seams at the head of the run, and certainly the higher proportion of rainbow trout are in this zone. Now let's cross over the river and look at that eddy that we spied from above. I've crossed the river through the shallow riffle, quite a ways above the run, and lowered my camera into the slower water that is part of the eddy formed at the side or the head of the run. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes eddies can be very rich with fish, as the swirling water can trap food inside it. But sometimes the water's too slow and clear that it just simply exposes the fish to too much danger, and they don't go there. I think that is the case of what we have here. You can see that the slower currents have deposited a lot of fine silt on the bottom. I think that it is also making this place less attractive as well. Even though whitefish tend to like finer sediment like this, when it is too fine, it just doesn't hold enough insect life. A lot of river bugs require good oxygen flow, but when you see silt like this, it's a strong indicator that there isn't a strong source of current and oxygen flow. Hence, this area is pretty lifeless with respect to fish, just a couple at most, and they are much closer to the seams and riffles than not. So in summary, what did we find today? Well, this piece of water holds a lot of fish, perhaps 100 or more. The tailout section and main heart of the run, which were either deeper or slower, held exclusively whitefish, no trout. The head of the run, where the riffle spilled in, that held a lot of fish too, maybe a little less in number relatively speaking, but certainly held the majority of rainbow trout. If I wanted some dry fly action, I would certainly target the head of this run. The combination of the shallow water and the rainbows means that even if there's no hatch on, you're likely going to get some dry fly action. However, if I was looking for more numbers of fish, I'd want to be tight lining or euro nymphing the main body and tail out of the run with a nymph heavy enough to get down to the narrow strip of water on the bottom where the fish are. As is typical, the majority of fish we're seeing deep, in about 4 feet of water and very close to the bottom. Well, that's all for this episode. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found it helpful.